James Ham. James, perfect time to join us as some news just broke with Detroit trading Jerami Grant to Portland for a 2025 first rounder via Milwaukee. My immediate reaction is Detroit believes Jaden Ivey is going to be available for them at number 5.
Yeah, I would think that that's probably a good guess. They do have plenty of forwards. That's the thing with Detroit. So clearly, if they think that the Kings are going to pass on Jaden Ivey, whether that's trading down and letting someone else take Keegan Murray at number 4, or it's them taking Keegan Murray at number 4, that certainly is a signal that they think something's going on. But then again, I mean, it's early. Like, we still got plenty of time between now and draft time tomorrow. Many things can change between now and then. And, I think we need to get ready for a wild, 48 hours here. This is going to be crazy.
The one thing I'll say about that, and I want to hear what both of you guys have to say, is they could possibly feel like we can't get there. We can't get to 4. And that's when they moved on with whatever plans they have, because we can't get there. We offered everything that we could possibly offer, which is Jerami Grant, a pick swap and 2025 pick or what. That's all we got, and the Kings are looking for more. We can't get there, so let's move on.
No, it's very possible. And the pick that Portland is getting, that gave up, it looks like is the Milwaukee Bucks 2025 pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good pick. Like that, you didn't get value for Jerami Grant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, that's not enough. Jerami Grant's 28 years old. He's under contract for $21 million. He's willing to talk and negotiate a long-term deal somewhere. But again, Detroit's got a lot of forwards. They want to bring back Marvin Bagley. They've got Sadiq Bey. There's always a possibility that they're still willing to wheel and deal, because they're not a team that's on the cusp.
Right.
You never know. They could be going out and getting that 2025 first round pick so they can give it to a team like the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going on there. So we're going to have to wait and see how it all pans out in the end. But look, the Kings can't sit around and wait for something to happen to them. They need to go out and make noise. They need to make something happen for themselves. And, if that's going out and getting John Collins, whatever it is, you can start making deals now. There's nothing holding anyone back. It's just when it comes to your number 4 overall pick, you're going to want to wait until you're on the clock with that one.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to D'Lo and KC on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge, our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, with us here. James, if the Sacramento Kings select 3 players tomorrow, a pick in the first round and 2 picks in the second round, was draft night a success?
I don't know.
Nothing else happens except that.
No. Well, I mean, not if your aspirations are going to the playoffs. I mean, you put yourself in a really difficult position, for sure. Now, there's still time to make trades after, and then free agency's coming up. But this isn't a free agency class where you're just looking at it and just awestruck. I mean, the Kings aren't going to go out and get Bradley Beal or Kyrie Irving. So, this isn't one of those stellar free agent classes that you can. I mean, I guess maybe if you were to dump a bunch of salary right now, you could go out and make a run at somebody. But I don't think you're going to be able to swing a Bradley Beal signing or something. The Kings have never been able to swing a free agent signing anywhere near that. So outside of that, yeah, I mean, that would leave a ton of work to do, a ton of work. You need to use every asset at your disposal at this point. And that includes, I mean, if someone wants the 37th pick or the 49th pick, whatever it is, that's fine. You need to be a mover and shaker in this year's draft. If you're actually, I mean, look, this is an arms race. The Portland Trailblazers just got better. Now, what are you going to do, Sacramento?
Well, look at Detroit, too. This is a great note by Jill here. The Pistons have $43 million in cap space. They've been tied to Phoenix for DeAndre Ayton. Could be a move for them. We're about to get lapped by Detroit.
Yeah, I think the problem that you have with Detroit and that the want for Ayton is that he's a restricted free agent. So,
Mhm.
I mean, if they want to give him max money, first of all, that's crazy. But secondly, like, there's no way the Suns are going to match that. Outside of it, like, you're going to need
I
to
don't think
make
it's
it.
crazy, by the way.
You're going to have to make a trade for him.
No, I
You
understand.
think Ayton's worth max money?
In certain situations, in
He's
certain situations.
he's coming out of his rookie deal. It's like with players coming out of that rookie deal, it's either like you still believe in them or you don't. I don't think there's any reason to be completely out on DeAndre Ayton yet.
No, but at 20 to 25, sure.
I don't feel like that happens a lot. Like that, like middle tier of, and that's a huge, and that's probably a huge compromise from DeAndre Ayton, who clearly wants max money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I too want max money. You know, like there's a big difference between want
deserve
and
it,
get.
though. You deserve
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the problem though. Like I just don't know that how much that impacts your team and your ability to win. But you are right. If somehow they get him and they draft Jaden Ivey because the Kings somehow pass on him, they would lap the Kings. Like 2 years from now, they're going to be a much better team than a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference specifically, but a lot of NBA teams. They have the makings of something. Whether they can get it to the point that you really where they're outstanding, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what Cade Cunningham is and the other pieces they put around these guys.
The other thing that this trade symbolizes to me a little bit in a positive light is from the rumors that we heard, this is one less team that's probably going to be going after, when talking about Portland, one less team that's probably going to be going after John Collins and in the market for him. So that's a good thing for Sacramento, and it may help them in a situation where if they don't want to give up the 4 and just trade John Collins for what you have on your roster, or maybe a second rounder included or something like that, it gives one less team that they have to compete against.
Yeah, I'd even say this too. Like the market for Collins isn't that high because if you're able to get Jerami Grant for a late 2025, what should be a late 2025 first round pick, that should go between 20 and 30. Mm-hmm. That kind of tells you what Collins might be worth. I mean, Collins is under contract, but that can be looked at as a positive and a negative. He's owed $100 million, $102 million, I think, still. And a lot of teams are looking at it like, I'm not paying that. So I think that's where, we kind of get to with when it comes to like Ayton too. It's like sort of that conversation. You got to figure out what it is that you want to do with your roster. How do you want to build it out? And I like John Collins. I hope the Kings go out and get John Collins because I think John Collins is a good player and I think he makes the team better and I think he fits really well with De'Aaron Fox and with Domantas Sabonis. Now, whether they can do it, yeah, and Jaden Ivey. If you want to throw Jaden Ivey in there, well, no, or Keegan Murray. Like put Keegan Murray at the 3. But see, that's a problem now.
So
I don't think Keegan plays the 3.
So that brings us to so you draft Jaden Ivey at 4, you trade John Collins without it. That brings us to something Kenny and I were talking about earlier. If there's stuff out there, including from Sam Amick about Collins and Barnes, Hawks and the Kings, nothing involving the 4, those types of discussions. And we were talking earlier. It's like, all right, yeah, cool. You solved your problem at the 4, but now you've created one at the 3. So how do you what do you do now? You're swapping out one problem for potentially another one.
No, I fully agree with that, but the difference is you're getting 5 years younger at the position. So like you need either way walking into this offseason, you need a 3 or a 4. Like Harrison Barnes has that ability to slide over and play the 4. And again, I think he looks fine at the 4 next to Sabonis, where he doesn't look great at the 4 next to Rashawn Holmes, just because of the rebounding. But if you are going to have a hole, you're going to have a hole to fill either way. And I would rather have a long-term solution at one of those positions. Basically, I don't think I said this on the pod last night. I don't think that like if we're looking at Harrison Barnes and John Collins, we're kind of comparing apples to apples. Like you're just getting a younger version. You know, is he going to change the entire trajectory of your franchise? No, but you need a guy who's that good who can play 30 something minutes a night and get you numbers and can be your second or third scorer. The Kings need that guy, and they're going to lose that guy in Harrison Barnes after this season, almost assuredly. Like they're going to have a tough time retaining him after this season. So, you know, at this point, it's probably best to swap out and then try to fill that small forward position. And that's not easy. Like filling that small forward position, it's not just snapping your fingers and boom, it happened.
Right.
You know?
Well, one of the things that I think about as well with Harrison Barnes is we know he just turned 30. It feels like he's been around forever, but he's still relatively young. But I almost feel with the way the game is being played today, and you know, he's played a lot of basketball. He's almost kind of starting to get into this phase where he's a modern four. Like when I think about a three, I don't think Harrison moves the way you would want a three to move. He doesn't defend threes the way he probably did 3-4 years ago. And this particular year, yeah, maybe you can still get away with him being at the three. But moving forward, if you know you're talking about another contract or whatever the case may be, feels like you're almost looking at him being like a stretch four in the game nowadays. And that's where when you talk about him and Collins being about the same, that's where I envision it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if Harrison is that three that we envision him like when he came here 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Harrison, especially if you're talking about how would he fit with Atlanta versus how John Collins would fit in Atlanta. So the Kings are in a position where they need both. They need a 3 and a 4. And Harrison is filling one of those spots and he can move to either one, but you still need one of them. Atlanta's in a totally different situation where like they can use him at the 3, at the 4. He could start for them at the 4 next to Capella. They've got a Kongu coming off the bench. They've got Hunter over at the 3 that they love. Hunter can play some forwards well. Like the versatility of their roster, they're far advanced past where the Kings are. But again, we're talking about like the contract savings between the two is I think it's $85 million over 4 years that Atlanta would save by getting out from underneath the John Collins contract. And that's a lot of money. And again, it's why we've heard reports. Well, I mean, I've heard like behind the scenes, I've been told that they would like to move off of Huerter as well. And Huerter's about to start a 4-year, $65 million contract. And they tied themselves with too much long-term salary. And they're looking at the luxury tax and they know they're in trouble and they would like to do a couple other things and they can't do anything. And they went from the Eastern Conference Finals to not very good. And so they're looking to move off a lot of money. And that could be where the Kings can actually take on 2 players, even though they're not great contracts. And you would be taking on, you know, upwards of $130 million or something between the 2 of them after you traded out like expiring contracts from the Kings roster. But that's still like that would lock you into 2 younger players that fit what you're doing, the shooter and the guy at the 4 that you need, the stretch 4 that you need. It would give you a lot of like flexibility if you were able to get both of them. Now what that cost is going to be, I'm not sure, but there is a huge value to taking on that kind of contract. So, you know, you can give up first round picks for players, but you can also take back a bunch of money that another franchise maybe just can't do. They just can't spend.
Real quick, I'm thinking about this Jerami Grant trade. Damn, Monty, you got to be able to pull one of those off. They just got Jerami Grant for nothing. They still have their 7th pick. Maybe they have the cap room or whatever. But man, come on, man. I need one of those.
But correct me if I'm wrong here, Hammer. Like there's still like you essentially at this moment, this exact moment right now, at least to the best of our knowledge, you got Jerami Grant for the season.
Yeah, that's it. He's a 1-year, $21 million contract.
So I understand you gave up nothing for it, but you're in a position like there's no Dame Lillard here. You know what I mean? I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Like if the Kings executed something, you'd probably have to have some type of, I would think you would probably want some sort of agreement in place or an extension in place or something.
Yes and no. Like if you're giving up a player or something, like, yeah, you want an agreement, but if you're just giving up a future pick,
it's not even yours.
It's not even yours. Like, he don't have to sign until when, like, I need money to get one of those. There was no risk involved, I feel, on Portland's side.
Cam Reddish all over again.
I'm thinking that Portland probably gave up Eric Bledsoe and his he's got like a $23 million salary, but they can buy it out for $3 million. Or maybe it's right around $4 million. So that's how they saved a bunch of money in that deal. And the Kings don't have that. That's the one thing that the Kings don't have is they have a bunch of expiring contracts. They've got, I think, one $4 million trade exception and a $3 million trade exception, but they don't have like that player that you can just take on and then waive and save $20 million bucks. That does have value. And like, look, a 2025 first round pick, you never know. It could develop into something, but the Kings don't have one of those. That's a problem.
It's also like, all right, that's one deal. Let's wait. Let's see what's it. I don't know that I don't mind talking about Jerami Grant. I don't have a problem talking about Jerami Grant at all and his potential here in Sacramento, but I can't say that like, yo, that was like when we talk about all these different trade proposals, I don't think Jerami Grant was on the top of my list. I don't even know who's at the top of my list. I mean, honestly, I think if I were to be honest with you, it would be unnamed player that we don't know at the top of my list. And then probably whatever scenario James Ham can put together for these players in Atlanta. And honestly, for me with Atlanta, it wouldn't be just John Collins. I like Ham's wild deal, wild ideas of bringing back a whole bunch of players and a whole bunch of money and all of that stuff and unloading, every expiring contract that the Sacramento Kings have to get this done.
Yeah, Huerter's 6'7", and he can shoot the rock. Like
I like him. I think I picked him to win Sixth Man of the Year this year. Which
yeah. I mean, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, like the Kings need a shooter. Shooters cost money. Like you're not going to get a bunch of super cheap shooters out there. It just doesn't happen. All these guys, anytime you can shoot the ball really well, you tend to make money. And so, like, again, I don't mind taking on Huerter's contract at all, but then again, it's not my money to spend. Like, I've done the math. Like, you could do so many of these deals and still be under the luxury tax. Like, there's all kinds of things that the Kings can do and still be under the luxury tax because it's all the way up to, I think, $149 million this year. So it's crazy talk how much money the luxury tax is. The Kings, I mean, they've got to have a payroll of 135 million, 134 million this year because you got to be within 10% of the cap. So they got a long ways to go. And, they can be movers and shakers here, but they got to make some smart moves.
Explain that just a little bit, James, where
Oh, wait, I messed that up. Sorry. I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah.
It's not 135 million. That's off of the luxury tax. It's based off of the salary cap, which is 122 million. So they've got to be within 100. They have to have $110 million payroll.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out. So, because I was under the impression that they don't have any cap space this year. So, if they don't have any cap space to, pull off a deal like this, shout out to our guy Deuce. He's tapping in and letting us know that, and he's 100% right. They can't just absorb a contract like Jerami Grant, where, like in a Collins deal, for instance, they'd have to send out money to take on Collins and Huerter, correct?
Yeah,
They can't absorb Huerter's contract or something like that. So you're looking at like Barnes, Holmes, Holiday for both of those guys, right?
Yeah, they've got to be with the deal has to be within 125% one way or another. So again, if you're looking at say a $20 million contract, you can go up to a $25 million contract or down to a $15 million contract. So as long as you're in that window, you're okay. So yeah, the Kings, but again, we've talked about this. The Kings have just a boatload of expiring contracts. I mean, Alex Len is at $4 million, Terrence Davis at $4 million, Mo Harkless is at 4.6. You got Justin Holiday at 6.3, just that alone, that's almost enough to make that happen. Well, to take on Huerter, it would only take. I think I figured it out. It's like Alex Len, Harrison Barnes, and Justin Holiday. You could actually get that deal done without having Holmes be part of that deal.
And all of the money disappears for Atlanta next year.
Yeah, and then they save all that money after this year. And they would save a bunch of money this year. So even if you just traded straight up Harrison Barnes for Jerami Grant, for John Collins, which you can do. John Collins makes, I think it's $23.5 million this year, and Harrison Barnes makes 18.3. It's within the 125. So you can actually pull that deal off and just do it straight up. And they save $5 million this year, but then like ridiculous money in the next couple of years. And, that means that they don't re-sign Harrison Barnes in order to get all of that money. But it also frees them up. Harrison Barnes probably isn't going to make $18 million on his next deal. Maybe you get Harrison on a 3-year 45. And even then you're saving so much money. It's crazy over what you would have paid Collins.
So it seems clear that Detroit is out of any conversation that would involve the Kings' 4th pick. Indiana is another team that's been tied to the Sacramento Kings, or at least through a variety of reports. A lot of that seems to center on Malcolm Brogdon. Woj said something interesting. I don't know if it was this morning or last night. We played the clip today, but he talked about he absolutely believes Malcolm Brogdon is going to be moved before the draft. And I would think, this is just me, James, your thoughts, that eliminates the Kings being a part of the conversation.
I don't think so. I think if there's a possibility for them to swap 4 for 6, but the problem of swapping 4 for 6 is that, from what we're hearing, Indiana wants Keegan Murray, and look, the Kings like Keegan Murray. I know they do. So, that's why there's talk that they could just draft Keegan Murray at number 4. Do I think that's a good idea? Absolutely not. I just think that it's not maximizing your potential. Although you are getting, what should be a really solid player in Keegan Murray, a player that, I've liked for a long time, but he's really good. I don't think he's going to be great, but, Jaden Ivey could be great, and you're giving up that opportunity. But I wouldn't say that just because we're hearing that they're going to try to move Brogdon before, that could happen where they have a deal set up like on draft night, that when we get to number 4, that deal happens. And if not, they turn around and flip him somewhere else that they already have set up. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that would change the calculus, what's going to happen here. I just think the Kings are going to want more than Brogdon to go from 4 to 6. So, again, if it's Brogdon, Duarte, that's not bad. And you're still drafting at 6. And then your idea of what you're taking at 6 completely changes, especially if you can go pull off John Collins. Now you start looking at small forwards at number 6. Maybe you take a Dyson Daniels, who grew to 6'8" in shoes and has great passing skills, big time high basketball IQ, really mature kid coming from the Australian League and the G League. Maybe you look at Jeremy Sohan, maybe something like that. Like, there's all kinds of things you could do at number 6, as long as you get a few other things along the way.
James, is there the scenario here where the Kings kind of price themselves out? They kind of play themselves here and over ask for this 4 and kind of play themselves out of any trade scenario because of what they're asking for?
No, because in all honesty, at the end of the day, if you just take Jaden Ivey, then he still has the value. I mean, he's not going to have value the day after the draft like he does today, because that's not the way it works. But I still think that you got a really, really good player with high upside. Like, does he fit? That's going to be a problem. You're going to have to figure that one out down the road. But that doesn't mean that you wouldn't take Jaden Ivey and say, okay, so you know what I'm saying? Like, if pricing yourself out of trading the pick means that you got the best player available, I don't know that that's so bad.
Like, if you're pricing yourself out of the trade because you're perfectly okay with taking the pick.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna ask for something outrageous. If you give it up, that's on you. If you don't, that's fine, because we're taking the player that we want regardless.
Yeah, and I think for the Kings, like, this might be a high stakes game of chicken with the Spurs. I mean, with the Pistons. The Pistons, everyone knows they want Jaden Ivey. Like, can they take Keegan Murray? Sure, they can take Keegan Murray. I would force them to take Keegan Murray. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if someone's going to be a winner in this, maybe it's not them. Maybe they don't draft Keegan Murray because that's not who they wanted. Maybe they allow him, you know, maybe they draft a Matherin or a Sharp or a Dyson Daniels or someone there at number 5, and the team that wins the whole thing is the Pacers, which is that's the player they want,
Right.
you know. But if I'm the Kings, I would almost rather have that outcome.
King's worst nightmare is
Yeah.
Indiana getting better.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is like, look, I think you're okay. Like if you're the Pistons, they can still trade Sadiq Bey. They can still trade a 2023 first round pick to go from 4 to 5. Like there's a lot of things that they can still do. Just because it doesn't fit what they're doing right now, like look, that's a young team. And having Bey on that team or having Jerami Grant on that team, that's not really going to change the whole outcome of their next 5 years. The thing that's changing their outcome is what Cade Cunningham becomes. And if they have a Jaden Ivey, what Jaden Ivey becomes. That's how they change their fortunes. Like Bey is a really solid rotational player. You know, Jerami Grant, really solid rotational player. I'd even put Ayton in that category. He's not, in my book, a star. He's a solid NBA center. But, you know, their grand scheme has to be built around Cade Cunningham. And if it's Jaden Ivey, it's Jaden Ivey. Like, if they're able to get him. Even I'd put them in the same category as the Kings. Keegan Murray doesn't change, like, their future. He doesn't. He doesn't fully change the Kings. Can he be a nice piece to go along with everything? Sure. But he doesn't change what's going to happen here over the next 5 years.
But you don't think Jaden Ivey does either?
Oh, no, I think Jaden Ivey has the potential to. Yeah. The problem I have in Sac is totally different. It's just that
they need so many other pieces to put together to make this all work.
Well, that, and I think he's too similar to Fox, where that's not the problem that they have in Detroit. I think Ivey's, like his strengths match up perfectly. They are the same strengths that De'Aaron Fox has. His weaknesses are the exact same weaknesses that Fox has. Like he's not great in the pick and roll. You know, he's not a great knockdown three-point shooter. He showed promise as a three-point shooter in the first 20 games of the season, where he shot like 44% from three. But the last half of the season, he really struggled. You know, like his pluses and minuses, they just match up with Fox, and it's really hard to disguise, you know, the same weaknesses on two players sitting out in front of you if you're the back line. So, I like him. His explosiveness is just crazy. He would be a lot of fun to watch. And watching him and Fox get out and run, it would be a great, like, entertaining style of basketball. It's just whether does it win or not. And in order to win at the NBA level, I think the two teams in the finals just showed you have to be able to play defense. And I would be concerned about the defensive fit. And the fact that Jaden Ivey, while he does play off the ball quite a bit, he's better with the ball in his hands. So, and so is Fox.
We'll come back. We'll talk more about this draft with James Ham, and you were at the Golden One Center for the introductory press conference of Mike Brown. Monty McNair was there as well. We'll talk with James about all of this stuff when D'Lo and Casey return here on ESPN 1320. Clear.
Hang on, I'm gonna pull this one up. LL Cool Ray. I do understand what you're saying, that Fox has a mid-range game, but that's a problem, that Jaden Ivey doesn't have a mid-range game. It's either at the rim or it's in three-point range. And Fox developed his mid-range game over the last couple of years. I expect him to develop some of that too, but Ivey doesn't have like a floater. He doesn't have a pull-up 16-footer. Really offensively, he's super raw, but he also, if he gets around the corner on somebody, he'll dunk over the top of two or three guys. He doesn't care. So he's got a little John Morant in him that way. Leland, no, there's no way they throw money at PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker is.
There's no way PJ Tucker takes that money either.
Yeah, he ain't. Yeah, he ain't coming. He ain't coming to Sacramento. Like, just like, I don't think. I mean, you never know. But Andre Iguodala, like if I were Mike Brown, I'd be saying, hey, can you come over and mentor for a year or two, and we'll give you too much money.
Andre said, no, I'm going to go golf.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Otto Porter, but Otto Porter can't stay healthy. If you have Otto Porter, you need to go sign 2 other guys because he can't stay healthy enough to play more than like 15 minutes a night on the season. Yes, Ja is a much better passer than Jaden Ivey. I totally agree. But we're also looking at, a young player who can develop those skills.
Where is...
These muffins are so good. I try not to eat anymore while we're on the show with James because there's like clips that get cut, and if I'm eating on the clip, that's just not a good look. So I'm
trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing tomorrow. I think the NFL, I think I did a smoothie like around 4, and that wound up getting me the rest of the way.
I have no idea.
You can do just a smoothie?
Yeah, I do. All I normally do during the show is liquids. I normally don't do any food.
Yeah.
But tomorrow's a little bit different, so we'll see.
I got to go to baseball today. It's going to be so hot.
Ooh.
Oh, no. It's even super hot. It's 93 up here right now. I'm always about like 4 to 5 degrees cooler than you guys down there.
We're 99 right now.
Yeah.
99. 9 times.
Patrick Donaldson, if the Kings trade for Collins, they wouldn't draft Murray. That's not true. They would try to fit them. There's a good chance they would try to fit them both. Like they like Murray. I know that. And again, I like Murray. I like Murray at any other pick below pick number 4.
I have a little bit of a revelation, Damien.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right. Revelation for the radio? Okay. Gotcha.
Can we say revelation like culmination in American Pie? Culmination.
We're coming back. What? Why is that reference escaping me? Live on the Odyssey app, live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, dropping pop culture references during the commercial break. That's all. That's all. I do wonder sometimes how many people because YouTube is all over the world. Mm-hmm. I wonder how many people are like watching the show, like they come across us, they find us, but it's during a radio commercial break where things are normally a little bit chill. And they're like, what the hell is this? People sitting around talking about American Pie and dudes talking about eating. Like, what type of show is this?
Talking about a Marion and Mario. Like, what is going on?
This is trash.
So there's people who come in here like, why are you guys talking about the Kings so much?
Yeah, that one. I get that was a good look. That made me laugh. You said a moment ago that's arguably one of the greatest show messages of all time. You said you had a revelation?
Just a mini one. Just a mini
revelation. So what's the revelation to epiphany scale?
Epiphany is the creme de la creme. That's when it's like I figured it out.
That's his aha moment.
Yeah, I figured it out. Like this
A
is
light bulb.
the issue. And there's also an issue in Sacramento that this isn't an epiphany because I've already felt this way. But I want to ask James about this a little later. But you asked the question earlier, and we talked about, is there a situation where the Kings come out of tomorrow losers, or they lost today, or whatever the case may be? And I said, no, I don't think so. And I still feel that way. I do. But after talking, after this trade, after everything that we've kind of broken down a little bit, there'd be a little bit of the deflated feeling if they drafted Keegan Murray at 4. I'm not going to lie. I'm just telling you how I feel. Because it's like, first of all, Keegan's already not really exciting. Like, I think he's a good ball player, but he's just not really exciting. And then you let the Pistons play you. They banked on you getting Keegan so they could get who they really want. You let them play you. I kind of feel that way.
I kind of get that.
I kind of feel like how you talked about earlier today, and I agreed then, and I agree even more so now. Is regardless of what you plan to do with it, Jaden Ivey's the only name that can be called at 4. Whether you plan to keep him, whether you plan to trade him, use him as a trade chip, whatever the case may be, anything else other than Jaden Ivey, well, for the masses. If they said Shaden Sharp, I'd be ecstatic. But for the masses,
Be a one-person celebration.
That's all right. I'll be a one-man wolf pack. I don't care. But yeah, I feel like it's got to be Jaden. Else it's gonna leave a funny feeling. That's all.
Yeah, it's just not maximizing the potential of the pick. I mean, that's all. Like, whether he's going to work out or not, like when you are gifted something like the number 4 overall pick, you need to do the most you can with it. And that can be trading, that can be moving up and down and like whatever it is. But you got to do something. Like if you're not comfortable with the player that should go there, I just don't think you can reach for someone else just because. And like for people who are saying, "Oh, it's crazy to think that there's a huge drop off between 4 and 5." No, there is. Like there's a huge substantial potential drop off. I don't care what somebody's like.
Just say Matt George by name.
No, because it's not just Matt. Like, and Matt will double down on it. I know
He will double down,
and then he'll dance on a video. Like, I totally get it.
Known to double down.
Yeah, he'll double down and he'll make a video on it where he's like on top of some car lot, some parking garage somewhere dancing. I totally get that he'll do that, but like even there was an ESPN thing today where they combined stats and all these things, these mystical things. They said that Keegan Murray has the highest potential to be an all-star out of this draft. And I just go, oh, okay. And I like him. I do. It's just, like this has become a 5-man draft. That I think that's what we're learning at this point. We know who the top 5 picks probably are going to be. Now, if Detroit gets like stunned by the Kings and they draft Jaden Ivey and then they're standing there at number 5, like what just happened? That's going to be one of those moments where the draft can change and they might go somewhere different. But a lot of teams are either moving up to draft Keegan or they're moving up to draft Jaden Ivey. And that still doesn't change the fact that there's a talent drop off after the 4th pick, in my opinion.
Okay. Let's shift gears here. If all agree, you were in attendance yesterday for Mike Brown's introductory press conference, and I'm anxious to get your opinion on it. You wrote about it, you talked about it on a live edition of the Kings Beat last night. I know as we aired that press conference last night, a lot of people were really excited about the things that Mike Brown had to say, and if those press conferences are designed to get your fan base excited, perhaps even get the people who cover your team a little bit excited. Mike Brown was a 10 out of 10 yesterday, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a joy, isn't he? Just a bundle of energy. He's super fun. He's funny. cracks some jokes, self-deprecating. I thought he was honest. I thought his talk about finding the soul of the team was really, really intriguing because like we can talk about culture and we can talk about all these things, but I think at the end of the day, maybe he captured the word that's better. Maybe the soul is better that we're kind of looking for here. Who are the Sacramento Kings? What is their mantra, their credo, their 10 commandments? Like it's all been lacking for the last decade and a half. So I think this is a guy who comes in. I asked him the question like very in the beginning of the press conference, like, what did you learn in 6 years? You had success, you had some failures, you had good times, you had bad times with Cleveland and then to the Lakers and then back to Cleveland. But then you spent the last 6 years, coaching for one of the greats of the game in Steve Kerr and one of the great dynasties that we're going to run into in the Golden State Warriors. Like what has changed from, you when you were young and trying to win with the Cavs, and what did you learn that you can take to sort of put forward like in this next step? And like every bit of everything that came out of his mouth I thought was positive. Like he's a very positive person, but also I think he understands that this is like a new lease on life. And it's a difficult lease on life because, he's basically taking a franchise that has been, for lack of a better term, like a dumpster fire for the last 15, 16 years. But that doesn't mean that there isn't huge potential. There's only 30 of these jobs. Every one of them has its own potential. And this one here, like there are plenty of things I could list off that are negatives, but you still have a beautiful building. You still have a beautiful facility. You're in a beautiful area to live. You got a vibrant fan base that just wants to win so bad. And if you can deliver that, you can be a superstar. We've always talked about that with Fox, but the same thing with a coach. I mean, if he can deliver even partially what he was able to deliver in Cleveland, fans are going to be really, really happy here. And yeah, I'm excited to cover him because, I've covered, I don't even want to know how many people at this point. I think, what do we say? This is my 9th coach in 12 years, something like that. I think I'm pretty sure. But the point is, like, each of them have a different personality, a different style, and I like the vibe right away. I loved Alvin Gentry's vibe as well. He's a cool dude who really spoke the truth. I like Luke Walton. Most of the coaches that have been through Sacramento, I totally dig. They're good guys, and they have good intentions. But the franchise needs to do right by him and stand by him through the tough times, because tough times always come in Sacramento, and you need to ride it out and give this guy a shot to succeed, because I think he's probably the best coach that this franchise has had outside of Rick Adelman. And I'll even say maybe Dave Yeager, but I think he's on par with Dave Yeager. He's got a better winning record than Dave Yeager, better experience than Dave Yeager. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
I agree with you. I liked everything that he said. It was almost perfect except for the whole sack toe, big tomato thing. I was like, no, coach, no, we got to be better. There is no big tomato here. If anything, you might call it Sacktown, but then you also might go City of Trees.
City of Trees.
You say Sacramento. This is just Sacramento. Leave it at that. And anything else is uncivilized. But I
feel like Sacktown only gets a pass because Tupac said it.
I feel so too.
It's kind of like
look, to be honest with you,
all right,
Damien, you've been around the country. I've been around the country. James, you've been around the country. I've never gone to anybody and be like, yeah, I live in Sacktown.
Yeah, never.
No, we don't say that.
It gained street cred because Pac said it, and I think we've been riding that since 1996.
Yeah, just no, Sacktown ain't it. It's not it.
It's not, but we have to live with it because it lives forever in California love. So
Sacktown. Yeah. Well, I say all that to say, you were on the Kings beat with Sean Cunningham, Brendan Nunez. Great episode again. And this is becoming a consistent thing. Like every time I listen, it's like a great episode. So it leads me to believe that maybe it's just a great show. How about that?
We try.
Maybe that's the case. But you guys were talking about, well, you specifically were talking about how the Kings, there's always somebody in the way. It's not one person. It's, somebody coming in trying to finagle their way in or whatever. And the big thing about Mike Brown, and maybe this is unfair to put this type of weight on him and his tenure, is he's going to at least have to help be a galvanizing force for this organization to finally understand the most important thing is winning. And everybody, I say this all the time, but everybody in the building, majority owners, minority owners, front office people, the business side, all this other stuff, all the issues that the people have, all the things that you want from your career, from what you're trying to do, it can all happen if we win. So you need to make sure every decision that's made, everything that we do in this building is to make sure that we win. And if I have to take a step back a little bit as this, whatever my role is here, if I take a step back a little bit, but that's going to help us win, I'm going to get that plus some in the future. And it just seems like they never understand that. They're always looking for the right here and now, whether it's for power, notoriety, somebody to give them credit, all this other stuff. They're just looking at what's right in front of their face instead of understanding the biggest thing is winning. And so when he talked about soul and finding your soul and all this other stuff, he's got to help these people in the building understand winning is how you're going to find your soul if you dedicate yourself to winning. And like I said, maybe that's too much to put on him, but I liked what he had to say. But it's not just the people in the locker room that he's got to convince.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I think that was probably the biggest thing that he talked about was the fact that everybody has a role on the business side, on the basketball side, and the training staff, the medical staff. Everybody has a role. Everybody needs to know their role. Everyone needs to play to their strength. Everyone needs to stay in their lane. Everyone needs to figure out how to best do their role. And that goes, again, from the players all the way down to, the guy who's taking tickets at the front gate. Like, you're all putting on, realistically, basketball is a show. You're all putting on a show. And if everyone needs to do their role to the best that they can do it in order for this thing to work. And that's been the problem that this franchise has had for a long time. They can't figure out a way to keep people in their roles. And you have people who they come in, they don't have pure motives, and then they just take over and they try to take control of more and more. And there is a way that the franchise is built that allows for that. And that shouldn't happen. And so I'm hoping that he can be someone who says, hey, look, I'm not comfortable with something that's going on there. I'm not comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. And that needs to stop. Because if you're not all pulling the same way, then you're pulling opposite directions. And, we saw it specifically with, Dave Yeager and Brandon Williams. Like, that was such a, cantankerous situation. It just, it made everything feel bad inside the walls. And, I got Dave talking about a cobra and a mongoose. And, we got these weird situations where people are buying each other's debt and holding it over someone else's head. Like, the whole entire situation was so poorly dealt with. And while I love Vlade, I think he's just an outstanding human being, he wasn't able to step in and regulate and put things right and just have his own walls be okay, what was happening inside his own walls. And part of the problem was he just couldn't step up and fire someone when he needed to. And that's what, when that situation happens, when you see these things unfolding, you have to nip it in the bud. You've got to say, that's not going to happen here. You have got to stop that. That's not who and what you should be doing. Everyone can have an idea. Write it down on a piece of paper and tell me your idea, or pull a 2 minutes aside and we can share ideas. But when everyone is trying to force their will and trying to have their own agenda, then that's how we get to 16 years of frustration and incompetence and failure and every other word that you can possibly think of.
In a post-press conference conversation with Sam Amick at The Athletic, Mike Brown seemed to kind of downplay the role Vivek had in this entire process. And if I remember Sam's writing correctly, Mike didn't meet with Vivek until the final interview. He was talking about he talked about his relationship with Wes. He knew Wes from their time in Cleveland. Talked about meeting Monty and kind of that process. And he seemed to, whether purposely or not, kind of downplay Vivek's involvement in this process, which, as always, as anything that involves the Sacramento Kings, Vivek's name is going to be thrown in there. Meanwhile, it seems like homie's just sitting at his house. He wasn't even there yesterday. From what I understand, he wasn't there yesterday. You certainly know better than I do, but
Yeah, he was noticeably absent yesterday. I think that that's by design. I think that that they're heading towards a way that he doesn't have to be out in front of everything. Like, I don't know if it bugs him like it bugs other people, but like if every time something weird or negative is happening, his name gets attached to it, like that wouldn't feel good if it were me. And so I think they're trying to show that he's taking a step back. Whether that's the case or not, like, look, he has a magical way of disappearing. It's possible he was hiding in the back of the room and threw out his little Acme hole and jumped through it and popped up, back in his house in Atherton. You just don't know because that dude has a way of disappearing like no one I've ever met. But from what I can tell, he wasn't there. And the press conference room, just so people know, it's never been so full. I think that was one of the cool things about yesterday. Was that, first of all, there's a ton of media there. They won't be there the second day of training camp, but they were there yesterday. And so we'll deal with that down the road. But then all of the front office, all of the coaches, 4 players were there: Fox, Davion, Terrence Davis, and Rashawn Holmes. All of the training staff, all of the basketball ops people, like the stats guys, everyone was in the room. We probably were like pushing fire code in the room. And that's a good thing because this is a rebirth, a restart for this team. And you want to show support for a guy who comes in with such a positive attitude and everything else. Everyone should be working and pulling the same direction to try to make this thing work for the first time in, a decade and a half.
Yeah. Hey, man, I love, I said it before, but I loved everything that Mike Brown had to say. We all know none of it's going to matter if they're not winning games, but it seems like I was telling Damien earlier, they seem like they brought him in for a perfect time, and not only this franchise where they're at roster wise and De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, but I think it's a perfect time for him as a coach. This seems like a really good group as far as where they are in their career for him. If he got somebody younger, I don't know how that works with a bunch of young guys, the Houston Rockets, so to speak. If he gets an older team that's kind of seen everything and been through a lot of stuff, i.e. that Lakers team that he had, I don't know if they respond as well to him. They may respond to him just like those Lakers teams did. This Kings team, I think Sabonis, Fox, Davion Mitchell, Dante, these guys, I think they're at a point in their career where they want to win. Like it's time to win some basketball games and kind of solidify myself as an NBA player and not be looked at as some type of loser or anything else like that. And I think they're more apt at this point in their career to listen to everything that he has to say and at the very least try it.
Yeah, I think we learned from the press conference and from, Amik's article and from other things that have happened the last couple of days that De'Aaron Fox has been working out nonstop, and he's been working out with Luke Lux, and that they have a bond, and Luke is friends with De'Aaron's fiance Rasay, and that's a good thing. They had ties from when she was with the Golden State Warriors. All of these things are good. Like, again, I don't think any of it matters if De'Aaron Fox doesn't come in and be the player that he can be from day one. If he sets the tempo from the middle of September or the first week of September on, when these guys really start filtering into town, and he sets a tone, this team will follow, and they've got a shot. If he doesn't, and we have last year again, the redux of 2022, 21, 22, then this thing doesn't have a shot. And so the head of the snake has got to be the head of the snake. And And I'm hoping that we're seeing this all line up where this is a guy that I think Mike Brown is a guy that De'Aaron Fox can get behind, and hopefully this thing will all work out. And, fingers